Hi everyone, welcome back to one more video. Today we are going to animate the player. So let's start here in the player file. The first thing we need are some textures. I'm going to create two variables here. One for walking textures and one for just standard textures. And here in the initializer we need to initialize them with the files that we drag to the project. We also need a function to animate the player. And we also want to create functions to animate the sword, so let's call it here. We're going to create later, but let's let it here. We want to pass a duration of this time interval. And let's create a function to animate to walking. It's just the same thing, but we changed some parameters. And we want this function here that we are going to create also. And here's walking textures. So let's create this here. We also want the initial position with the first position that we create, because we are going to change the position for the animations and we want to restore it because we are stopping all animations. We have these two functions. Now let's create a jumping attack for our character. I want him to jump in mid-air. As again the button, you aim down with the sword and to want the rotation of the sword and change the player sprite if we click this button. So first let's add a variable here. For the jump attack, let's create another function here. And we also need a function to control if we are colliding with the floor. Let's create one for the sword also. Okay, so this function we want to set false for every jumping property for the player if we collide with the floor. And if we jump attack, we are removing the animations and changing the texture of the player so it can jump, and setting this variable for true so we don't enter here anymore. And in the sword here we need two new functions. The jump attack, I'm just going to rotate the sprite, and a function for collision. So this is rotating by 90 degrees to the bottom of the point here. And this is resetting the rotation. Okay, now let's call everything in this scene here. First thing, let's go to the didBegin function. Here we are going to have some changes. The first thing we want to check here, we want to change the action button name. Let's start with the action button pressed here. If we press it, the first thing we are going to do, we are going to animate it. we're going to call action button. Let's change the name. So if we click 2 times in the button, we are not going to jump 2 times, we're going to change for a jump attack, and the second click is going to jump attack. And let's change the texture. I have all the sprites added in my assets here, the animations and the new buttons. And we also need a new button. So let's create a function for this button press. We want to jump attack. And let's change back the texture. Let's give it a texture of a press jump attack. So you can give feedback to the user that the button was pressed. This is a green button. This is just a normal gray button with a sword. Okay, so here in the did begin function, we also need this in touches begun. Let's create a case for the jump attack button. And here in the did begin, if we have contact with the floor, let's change the action button name. So it's the jump button again, not the jump attack, and we want the texture also to be restored. We want the player to collide with the floor, so we are going to reset it here to jumping variables, and we want to move it or not depending on the active touches. So if we are moving, we are going to animate walk, otherwise we are going to animate the standard animation, just going up and down with the player. Okay guys, so we forgot here this function repeat forever. Okay, here we added the wrong asset name, we just didn't change, we forgot to change this. Okay, so we have him animated. If we walk, it is animated. If we jump the button, sprite changes the texture, and the player texture also jumps. If you click again, the sword rotates downwards and the button turns green. I also put some alpha, changed the opacity of the background, and I put this little sprite here. It's not the final version yet, but it's better than before. So that was it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave comments on the comment section below. See you in the next episode.